This is Create the Next from ProCFO Partners, where every week we explore strategies and ideas for financial management and growth to help today's businesses put their financial picture in context.
Welcome back to Create the Next. I'm Chris Bitliff, and we're having another conversation today, a client story. And I love how we always phrase these and frame these as stories, because as we spend time in these conversations, we realize that there are stories, there's through points, there's plot lines, there's befores and afters. And I think that's a real interesting thing for us to explore together. Today, we have Jason Kitchell, who is the president at Universal Medical Resources. They are nuclear imaging experts, which sounds very serious to me. And Joe Shake is the pro CFO in this relationship. And guys, welcome. And Joe, I'm gonna send the hot ball over to you. And I'm just going to kind of listen in as our audience is, and enjoy the conversation as Jason and Joe kind of share their relationship with us.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Hi, Jason.
Hey, Joe. How are you?
Good.
Good.
So I'll kick this off a little bit because our situation with Jason and I is a little bit unique in that I've known Jason probably going on close to 4 years, and we got connected when I was doing consulting in a past life, and Universal was looking for some financial help, whether it be with cash forecasting, just trying to get their arms around the financial statements and themselves and all sorts of different things. And to not elaborate too deeply into all of that, one of the funnier stories that I always remember in the first day that Jason ever actually interviewed me from a standpoint of the consulting standpoint, he had mentioned to me to say, okay, our cash is basically negative, and I want it to be roughly 2 times positive of what our payroll traditionally is on a biweekly basis. So he basically wanted to have enough cash in the bank to always be twice the amount of his payroll. And as much as I kind of laughed at that of thinking, okay, quite lofty, I agreed to the challenge. We got into the engagement with them, and every week I focused very heavily on cash and trying to get them set up with a cash forecasting model, as well as figuring out, okay, what are going to be milestones as we go along? How are we going to make these things happen? What are going to be some of those key performance indicators? What's going to be the strategy to get us to that next level? How are we going to get Universal Medical on the map, which was, to me, my true goal. That was my goal as the project was to put Universal Medical back on a map. So that was kind of the gist and short story long of how we got connected. Then fast forward, after the project had ended, maybe about a year later, Jason reached out and said, okay, I'm not sure I'm where I want to be. I love the things that you initially did for us, but I'm not certain I'm really getting what I want. Can you help? At which point I was more than willing to, of course, try to help him. Only it was under a different capacity now because I was now working with ProCFO as a fractional CFO, and kind of brought up the concept to him to say, hey, yes, I can help. I would prefer to do it instead of me as a consultant, but do it as me as a fractional CFO under ProCFO umbrella, which he agreed to. We got him connected with Holly and Nelson, and the rest is history. So I guess really and truly from that, my first question, as I say, that's the background. My first question to you, Jason, would be, what value would you say you've found now from knowing me as a consultant to then saying, okay, now fast forward from a fractional CFO, what value are you finding, if any, whether it be with me or all of ProCFO as a whole?
So, Joe, thanks. I would say that the things that you have helped with, both in a different capacity and now with ProCFO, is invaluable to me. When I first met you, we were pretty much in dire straits. And I always said, I don't know what I didn't know. And you didn't realize how bad it was until you have someone of Joe's caliber and understanding of finances to help me see that. It's been invaluable to me, both in that capacity and now in this capacity, because the cash forecasting has been a huge help. Joe spoke about how I brought him back. I brought him back because I didn't have the right people in the right seat. And Joe kind of helped me see that. And I have a hard time with that portion of the business. I don't like to let employees go. But once I realized the light came on, he helped me come out and try to find someone to be a controller. And it's been a big help with that portion as well. So I'd say that Joe's help has been invaluable. I can't even put a number on it, but not for sure I'd be in business right now if it wouldn't be for him.
Okay, that I didn't actually write that well enough for you to say it. So thank you. Very flattering. But we have worked well together. Obviously, we have accomplished quite a few things. And so I know you brought up a couple of things with respect to the cash work and so forth. What would you say was your biggest accomplishment at this point? Would it be the cash? Would it be the strategies? What would you say really has been?
So I would say probably the biggest one is the cash. When Joe first came here, as he stated, we were in the negative. We were in the hole pretty much every payroll. I shouldn't say pretty much, but we were very close in the being in the negative. And there was a few times, unfortunately, I had to put in my own personal cash to make ends meet, which is not fun, which is also why I stress so much about having two payrolls in the bank at all times. So without that, I'm not for sure where we'd be without that. So I think that'd be the one thing. The other thing I think that he helped me with is the increasing the employee utilization. So at that time, I didn't realize how I wasn't making sure that all the employees were putting in 100% of everything they could to make sure that we're getting the most out of them to be more profitable. And that's where the cash comes from, is from the profits.
Very true. And obviously, we've done a pretty good job with respect to doing that. Personally, I think we still have a little bit of a ways to go to get to where I personally would like to see you.
Yep.
One of the things that I still am personally struggling when I look at the businesses, obviously you still have debt from when you acquired the business. In my personal goal, and I think yours as well, is to obviously get you out of that debt to where everything is 100% yours and not, okay, here the bank owes this. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think we're both on the same page there, which kind of leads me into a little different way to say it. And so asking the questions from a standpoint of before, say, Pro CFO, you used to think X. Now that we are on board as Pro CFO and say me or the company, now what is your thinking?
So I think that the X that you talked about was I'm never going to get out of debt. I'm always going to have to pay the original founder, or I'm going to have to pay all this bank debt. I think that now with Joe being in here, he can help me see that, okay, if we do some small changes, it's not going to happen overnight, but we can reduce all the bank debt. I can reduce the debt that I have to the owner and actually utilize that cash, again, with Joe's help, to say, okay, we're going to invest X percentage back into the company to grow to that next scale of the company up. And then we're going to take another portion for a war chest in case we do have slow collections or whatever have you, and then eventually pay me for being an owner.
So I guess really, I mean, a lot of things we've talked about were, where you're heading, what we're trying to accomplish. And obviously, we still know that we have a little bit of a ways to go, what we want to truly get to for that end result. And I know not necessarily how much you want to talk about this, but I know that one of the things we had been working on initially when things were not as smooth as they could be and are even say now, today, in today's world. But you had always looked at saying, okay, you know what, get me an exit strategy.
Yes.
And you had quite a few suitors, so to speak, calling you, asking you, hey, Jason, we'd love to acquire you. We would love to merge with you. We would love to have these conversations. And more often than not, you continuously try to explore that opportunity.
Correct.
Now I'm finding in the past, I'll say 2 or 3 months in particular, you really haven't asked that question to me as of late. And that, I don't know if that is because you have not had people calling you, or you are having a change of mindset to think, you know what, let me get to the company where I want it to be before I go and sell it.
I have had many conversations. In fact, I had a conversation this morning with a guy who was interested in the company. So it definitely is in the forefront of my mind. But with Joe's help, we're trying to make sure that our financials are in the best state possible to be able to have an exit plan. We're not at that point, but we're working very hard to get to that area. So I can show, a lot of times, a lot of the suitors who want to buy the company, they want to be at a 2 to 5 million of EBITDA. We're going in the right direction, but we're not that far. We're not even close, probably we might be close to 2 million. Just to give you an overview of me personally, I'm an engineer by trade. I'm not an accountant at all. In fact, I'm so bad, I didn't know what an EBITDA meant at the time. So I go, Joe, what the heck's EBITDA mean? And he had to explain it to me because everybody was always asking me whenever they wanted to buy the company, hey, what's your EBITDA? And I'd come up with some cockamamie story. I don't even know what I told them. But in the back of my mind, thinking, I don't even know what EBITDA is. So that's another big thing that I'm looking forward to. And we're starting to keep track of that in a way, but with a goal of getting as large as I possibly can. Once I get to that point, then we're going to start talking more about exit strategy and what the best thing is for the company and me personally long term. So
very cool.
Yep.
So now one of the things too is early on, back in the consulting days, I had brought up to you about Vistage.
Yes.
And the value of what Vistage brings to the table, not just for you as an owner, but also how you can meet so many other CEOs in non-competitive world within
Yep.
your same area,
Yep.
Regional geography. And you had done so. And
Yep.
since that, you've also referred us to 3 or 4 different of your colleagues within Vistage. So what prompted you to say, okay, really listen and say, okay, let me join Vistage. And then from there to say, you know what, guys, have a conversation with ProCFO. They're great.
Right. So the Vistage thing came up because when you and I spoke before, you mentioned about it would be nice to have someone else I could speak with that's in the business. And I had someone from Vistage contact me. I looked into it and I remember talking to Joe about it. He's like, oh, yeah, I've been a Vistage member. I would recommend them if you can do it because there is a small commitment. Both financial commitment and a time commitment. So I did join. I do have my 1-year award I received the other day for being there for a year. I highly recommend it because, like Joe said, it's nice to talk to other business owners that's not in a competitive way. And I enjoy listening to their stories of what they've done in the past. And I've got some pretty good stories myself with my financial troubles. So we talk about that all the time. So the Vistage thing has been very helpful with that. The reason I brought up ProCFO and Vistage was because a couple of the owners was talking about issues with their accounting department, same as I had, and said that they were going to go with another CFO. And the story I received from them is like, I don't know if I want to go with these guys. It seems like they're doing the bait and switch thing. I don't understand what they're saying. And I said, hey, have you ever heard of ProCFO? Like, no, I never heard of them before. And I said, well, that's who I use. I highly recommend them and all that good stuff. And they said, can you send me some more information? I sent some more information to them. They spoke with Joe. I think I had a meeting with them the next month and they were talking about that. And I said, how'd things go? Oh, we really like Joe. We really like doing ProCFO. I think we're going to sign up. And I found out they signed up. And it was kind of cool because then they started kind of saying how well they're doing with ProCFO. And they were complaining about another group that they were with. And I made it very clear to them. I said, guys, if you have a problem with Pro CFO, you please tell me. I know someone I can talk to, but Pro CFO to fix it. But as far as I know, I've not had any complaints that I've heard from the people who joined. I think they were a little disappointed that they weren't going to get Joe. I'm so sorry I don't have control over that. But that was how the whole Vistage and Pro CFO relationship began.
Very cool.
Yep.
So I guess the final thing to kind of wrap things up overall from my end to you, and then you can ask any questions of me, would be if there was one word in a nutshell to describe us as Pro CFO, what would that be? And then why would you pick that word?
I have a couple words that came to my mind. One was success, but the other one might be accountability. Because I think one thing that Joe has showed me is holding people accountable. And Universal Medical was kind of, I don't want to say it backwoods, but it's a lot of friendships that I've had with other people I went to high school with or college with and things like that. And I didn't know how to properly hold people accountable for whenever they're going to say they're going to do things. And I would say probably over the past 6 months, especially 6 months, but over 12 months, I've been holding more people accountable to what they say they can do. And within doing that, I'm finding that some of the employees, and they're good people, I don't mean bad about it, but they might be in the wrong seat. So I think that we've been using the accountability portion of that Joe's been helping with to find that we have the wrong person in the wrong seat, and maybe they could do something else help the company. So I would say 2 words actually: success and accountability for both of them.
Very cool. Do you have any questions of me or anything at this point?
No. Just looking forward to moving forward and finishing up and trying to get these EBITDA numbers up, like we spoke about, and becoming more efficient. And one of the things Joe helped me as far as seats go is making sure that we had the right person in the seat for HR. So we helped with that as well. So not only did Joe help with the controller, which has been a good thing, he also helped me figure out what I need to do for HR. And that's been a huge help to me. She's almost become my counselor. So I meet with her every day and I might complain about whatever. And she's like, well, have you thought about doing this? You thought about that? So between Joe and her and David, who's my controller, it's been a pretty good combination.
One of the things you kind of, as you say that, kind of brings to mind with respect to a conversation you and I had recently, and that was about David, who is your controller, is doing a phenomenal job, no question about that. Would be that you found that there is a difference between, say, that controller and the CFO, and even as whether it be a full-time CFO or fractional CFO. And what would you say that the biggest thing that you found with that difference?
I think that David, our controller, does a great job at making sure that we are doing what's responsible for our AP, the AR on the day-to-day functions. I think that the thing that our controller may lack a little bit is bigger picture, making sure we make the right investments. And so, whereas with a CFO, they have Joe to obviously have the experience of working with larger businesses and giving recommendations to kind of get us to that next level. So I think that's kind of the difference between David. Our controller does a great job, but whenever I start talking about bigger picture, a lot more money that needs to be involved, I think it's a little bit nervous because it's going to be some potential investment money needed, and I think that he gets a little bit concerned about, does he know what the next step should be? And I feel that with Joe and fractional CFO, they can look bigger picture and say, okay, if you want to get into this product line, just use that example, it's going to cost X, and over these many years, you'll have that paid back out. I think if he would help, the CFO kind of helps you plan that process out. And as long as you can stick to that plan, it will be okay. So I think that's a difference so in my mind, controller kind of keeps track of how that's going. The CFO kind of makes sure that we have a plan in place to get to that place. So if I want to invest $1 $1 million is going to produce $5 million in revenue with $2 million in profits. How are we going to do it? So the CFO kind of helps me do that.
It's so fun to listen in. And Jason, I'm deeply grateful for your candor and your just sort of easy and honest assessment of things. And I think that it's interesting because as you were sort of self-deprecating about EBITDA, I feel like you're prototypical of many, 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 many small business owners who would be embarrassed to say, I don't know this and this and this. And that's what they do know is that and that and that. And that's the stuff that helps their business grow, the visionary, the tactical stuff even. And so it's not unusual to just have blind spots or simply don't, as you said, I don't know what I don't know. One of the things that I think is interesting is, as you touched on, employee utilization. And another thing that's very typical is you have, it sounds like a business full of people who have found their way in, or good buddies, or a person you trust, and we'll figure out what you do later. Yeah. And then as you grow, those things become, or as your goals become more pointed, or as your issues become more urgent or stressful, those things can surface. And I'm wondering, as you were talking or thinking about, you know what, I need some help in this way, as you were saying, I want to double this, and I need a better understanding of cash flow here or there. Has it been surprising to you the other places, maybe in utilization or in operations, or as you mentioned, HR, the other places where Joe's perspective or impact has shaped your thinking or your doing around something that you would have never thought, oh, I didn't know my CFO was going to help me with that?
Yeah, I would definitely say it goes back to what Joe was asking about a while ago, that, a few months ago, I may have been getting so many people asking to buy the company. I was all excited, like, you know what, I'm tired of this headache. I just want to sell it and get out, but I don't want to hurt my employees, blah, blah, blah. As we went through that thought process, Joe was talking about changing some things with accounting and making it better. And as I had done my own investigation and more reading about different things, realizing about how EBITDA makes such a big difference, that I feel now that definitely has changed my thought process. Without him talking to me those things, I would probably be like, when someone called up and say, I'm interested in your company, I'd be doing everything. I say, okay, let's get this thing off. I don't want to deal with it no more. Mm-hmm. And now I feel that now that I'm getting people in the right seats, I'm not there yet, but it's becoming easier. And I'm getting to the point now where not only do I want to get my EBITDA up, but I also want to reduce all my stress and allow my employees, and maybe hire the right people, let them take care of operations, and I become more of a CEO and owner.
Which, that was my next question is, you were really transparent about just kind of how this has affected your life. And one thing that's true when you're a small business owner is there is no aspect of your life that is not fully, woven in. You don't ever clock out. You're not ever laying in bed thinking about not work. Like, it just is what it is. Right. How has that, and you mentioned, the dynamics that can be in personal relationship as well. As those things we don't want to say the problems are solved, but you've got them organized, at least mentally or emotionally organized in a way where you feel like you know what you're doing. How has that progress changed how you go to work? As you said, I want to be a CEO. Are you finding yourself now being able to picture your work life in a more structured way than just sort of, I'm just a guy trying to react to huge situations all the time?
Absolutely. I would say one of the biggest things that I am not doing anymore that I used to do is checking the bank account. Mm. I was every morning, the first thing I do was check the bank, because I wanted to make sure that we weren't going in the negative. And let me tell you, this is prior to Joe and I ever meeting, we were in negative a lot. And I'd say, okay, how am I going to get this? Because we had a line of credit. And I'd say to myself, okay, I guess I'm going to have to pull some money out of the line of credit, get this down, and go back in. And between Joe and my wife, actually, at the time, because he's like, are you stupid? You keep borrowing and putting it back, borrowing and putting it back. And if you keep doing that, you're going to run out. And she's right. So I stopped doing that. And with Joe's help, we're able to stop doing that. So I think the biggest thing that I would say that's beneficial for me is not being worried about what's in the bank account. I do still check it, I'm not gonna lie, just to be sure. But the cash forecast certainly helps with that. And I can tell you, it's not perfect quite yet, but we're getting to the point to where I can look out several weeks and see, well, we're going to be a little low in cash. And I use that as a filter, saying if somebody wants to buy something that's a little bit more than usual, say, hey, look, let's hold off a week, that type of stuff. So that goes back to the cash forecasting that Joe's been able to do. So that's the change for me. And now I feel like as I'm putting the people in the right seats and getting the right people in here, and thank God we have enough cash to potentially do this, I will reduce my time working and enjoy life.
One of the things that I would say to your credit, which was really, truly massive within our success of that, was the relationship that you had with the bank.
Yep.
I mean, you truly had a phenomenal relationship with your bank. And obviously, they were extending credit when they probably felt they shouldn't.
Yes.
And in turn, you and I had a lunch with the two bankers and had a conversation, and you wanted them to obviously get to know me, get to have that a little bit better trust level.
Yep.
And so the one thing that I would say of any business owner is that what you did was beyond right, was establish that relationship with the bank. Without that relationship, I don't think I could have done anything to build that strength, anything more than just, okay, yes, I got to know them. Maybe they trusted me a little bit, but to be honest with you, that initial relationship that you had with them was just truly golden.
Yeah, I agree that the bank has helped us out tremendously, and they still do. That it's kind of, I guess, flattering that they asked me to be on one of their boards. So I'm a board member of the bank. I'm not the true board member. They got cash put in the bank, but I'm part of their community board where they're trying to make the bank better and stuff. So I have a meeting with them every couple of months. And at that time, the president and then the VP of the bank are there. So we spend a lot of time talking about stuff. And of course, Joe's name comes up, which is good. Because if I tell them about some cockamamie idea I have that I want to get this company to, they'll sometimes ask, and is Joe involved in doing that stuff? I'm like, well, yeah, he's helping me out. So that's good to have that as well. So
that's their filter. Is this your dumb idea or is this Joe's dumb idea? It's Joe's.
No.
It's less of a dumb idea.
No, it's my brain working overtime because I know there are so many good opportunities here. I mean, it's trying to pick out which one is the best one to go with. And that's where Joe would come into place and say, okay, if you want to do this program, this is the amount of cash I'll tell him this is what I think it's going to take to do it. And then he'll ask questions like, are you going to pay it back? And then we'd sit down and go through that. And there are some cockamamie ideas I have, just doesn't make sense, which is fine. And there's other ones that make a lot of sense. It's just finding the initial cash to get the project started.
And I feel like that is how the partnership should work. It is your job to have cockamamie ideas. That's what a visionary does.
Yes.
And Joe's job to either support that or recalibrate that or reevaluate that or extend the vision into, or this isn't the right time. And it's when that dynamic is in play that high performance begins,
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Joe Shake is a pro CFO at ProCFO Partners, and Jason Kitchell is the president at Universal Medical Resources. They are at Unimed, which is UNI-MED.com. And guys, I hope you come back in like a year and tell us how it's going, presuming that you're still there, Jason, and you haven't sold and you're on the beach. But we would love to catch up. And this has just been such a great conversation about things that so many of us can relate to. And Jason, really appreciate your interest and your involvement in helping us understand you and your story better. It's really been a great conversation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Visit ProCFOPartners.com for more strategies and ideas for financial management and growth to help you put your business's financial picture in context.